You know, a lot of us will feel stressed when exam season rolls around, and I'm kind of assuming that because a lot of my viewers are around like the ages of 18 to 24, so I'm assuming you're high school or a uni student, and around this time is when all the projects and exam prep starts, right? We gotta prepare for, I don't know, a lab report, we gotta prepare for an essay that's due in a week, and then exams are gonna come around after winter break, and there's so many things to worry about, and it kind of stresses us out when all these things come crashing down on us. Yeah, it's just something that happens to us naturally, and we don't really question this stressful feeling, and we're just like, oh, I just gotta do this, you know, you don't really question it. Another thing is also expectations that kind of adds to our stress. Stress is something we all don't want to encounter, and when we put those extra expectations of we should get this mark on this assignment, we should get this mark on this test, it doesn't really help our case either. But I think the number one cause for all the stress is procrastination. We tend to procrastinate because, well, we're just lazy people, right? Admit it. Unless you're the odd one out and you can manage your time really well, you never procrastinate, you can like spread out your work throughout the day, you procrastinate, okay? The large majority of you will procrastinate, and that's the reality. And when we procrastinate, we put things off too far, and it ends up leading to a crunch time where we're just super stressed out trying to get things done, and it's just not an overall healthy thing to do. And so this video, here's how you can stop procrastinating. Procrastination's kind of like a hard thing to talk about because, well, it's something we've been doing since the beginning of our existence, right? As soon as we got any responsibilities and any chores, we would try and like put them off, and we wanted to do something else at the time. If we were a little kid, we wanted to not eat, I don't know, or like fucking vegetables or some shit, or I don't know, not do homework, right? And it's stuck to us for now. We've built this habit of putting the things that we don't want to do off for way too long than we actually should. We should be doing a lot of things, and we know that we should be doing a lot of things, but we just purely don't because we're not disciplined enough, and we just don't want to do it. We don't want it enough. And we still know that we have to do it eventually, right? And that leads us to pushing it off until a very cramped time span where we're just super stressed out and we have to finish this thing, and we're super worried like, oh, I gotta do this when I get back home, and you can't think about anything else. Now, there's a difference between obsession and stressing out over something, and in this case, it's stressing out and it's not good. Obsession is a different thing where you're like obsessed with goals, other things. That's a whole different topic that I might cover on another video, but today we're talking about overstressing, and that's what procrastination causes, right? But the one thing I've kind of noticed, and the one trick I've really applied to my own life to kind of like prevent myself from procrastinating for too long, is just to do the thing that I need to do for maybe a minute or so, right? Find the thing that you need to do and do it for a minute. Tell yourself and try and convince yourself that it's only a minute. It's not gonna be that long and you can do it, right? And the thing I found is that after you start doing it for a minute, you start getting into the flow of things, and you can actually focus, and you stop procrastinating and putting things off, and you realize this ain't so bad. I actually kind of enjoy this. Once you actually start writing, once you actually start doing your project or studying for that exam, it actually ain't so bad, you know? Once you get into the flow of things, once you actually get into that like state of focus, it's honestly not that bad. And that's what I've really noticed throughout this little trick I've applied. So if any of you are really struggling with trying to actually start doing the stuff, just do it for a minute. Because what I found is that it leads to more than just a minute of doing that thing. You can kind of stick to it for a lot longer, and also try and keep a goal for what you want to accomplish during this time span. Because once you start doing it, you'll start seeing that goal that you want to achieve for this, like, oh, I want to finish this part of my project, or I just want to finish my project in general. And if you have that goal, you will keep working towards that goal or until you're like out of that state of focus, and chances are you'll get a lot more work done than you would have just sitting around and saying like, I don't want to do it, and just putting it off for way too long. And the second part is going to be for the people that already know how to manage their time. They don't really procrastinate, and they're pretty good with how they handle these things, you know. But they still seem to stress out over their tests, their projects, And here's a question I want those people to ask themselves. I want you to ask yourself, what am I really worried about? Because chances are, what you're really worried about is not too important, right? Because if you're really stressing out over a test and you've studied well for it, the only thing there's to be worried about is your grade, right? You're worried about your grade and how it's gonna turn out after doing the test. But don't overthink these things, right? Don't worry about it and don't dwell on that thought and like fear of what if I get this mark on this test? What if I like bomb it, you know? But if you've done your work properly and if you've studied correctly and you've efficiently done all this, chances are you're gonna get a pretty good mark, right? If you know all the things you're doing, if you're pretty well prepared, you should get a pretty decent mark. Well, if you don't, well, it's not the end of the world, right? Whenever you fuck up a test, you're always gonna be pretty pissed off, or like there's gonna be a shitty feeling attached to you, and use that shitty feeling to push you forward and propel yourself to do better on that next test, to raise your mark up and make up for this test, you know? So that's about it for this video. And to overall conclude, procrastination is what really leads us to stressing out over school and why school just seems overall so stressful. And to help battle procrastination, here's a quick tip. Do whatever you need to do and do whatever you're procrastinating about for a minute. Do it for a minute and chances are you'll start doing it because you'll get into a flow state and you can just continue working. And for those of you that are already good with procrastination and you don't really suffer from it and you still stress out, ask yourself, what am I really worried about? Because chances are it's not that important. All right. So that's about it. And do the shit that needs to be done. All right. And give me a kiss. Mwah.